to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now we are ba-dum-bum in the year of the Dresden, and we are covering
Year of the Dresden.
the last portion of the plot weeks after reading it because we were terrible about getting
Well,
this
let's see what we
episode schedule.
remember.
I
I'm
had to
glad I
type
took
up
notes.
I had to type up the plot, and I did like put at the top of it like make sure to mention that this is weeks apart. So if we're confused, it is on us.
So when listeners are like, that didn't even happen in this
What?
book. There were
What are you
no loop
guys
gurus.
talking about? Well, they mentioned Loop Guru because at one point Harry's like,
They do mention them.
yeah, he's like, it's worse than Loop Gurus, and Murph's like, oh no. So,
Loop gurus.
Loop Guru, not a Loop Guru. But Laura,
Freaking
before
love loop
we
gurus.
get into it, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Okay, so Hannah, just a little disclaimer. I am part of the Team Before We Go blog Spiffbo team.
Hmm.
And so I have been reading some awesome indie fantasy books. And one that I read recently, this is a semi-finalist for Team Before We Go blog for Spiffbo, was Undine's Blessing by Tessa Hastjarjanto. I apologize if I'm saying that name incorrectly. I am horrible with name pronunciations and character pronunciations and just pronunciations in general. This is a book that I think is maybe geared towards like YA, yeah, a YA fantasy. But it follows a young girl, Morella, who the beginning of this book, it really drew me in personally. But the beginning of the book, we meet up with this girl named Morella who spends her days caring for her mother who deals with chronic illness. And they live along the seaside. And Morella's father is a fisherman and he goes away for long periods of time and comes back with fish. And there ends up being a day where Morella's mother becomes very ill and she has to go away to the city to get treatment.
Okay.
And so Morella is then forced to go with her father out to sea on his boat
Oh,
because there needs to
okay.
be somebody to be with her. She's like a little girl. She obviously shouldn't be left home alone.
I don't know. I
And
would do it.
I mean, it's a fantasy book. Maybe we could do it. But we're still following the rules apparently in this fantasy book of a child needs to have a guardian, which I appreciate it.
Yes.
But so Marilla goes with her father on this boat and they end up encountering this like hidden island that apparently her father had been visiting for quite some time. And
Hmm.
Marilla like discovers this unique group of people there and kind of learns some secrets and learns about a mysterious past of the people there and
Oh.
also learns a little bit about like her own life and herself that she didn't necessarily understand about herself. She always kind of felt different, and connected to things that she couldn't quite understand. So when she's on this island, she has some self-discovery and also learns about this hidden group of people and things unfold. But
Hmm.
I'm not going to give away the whole plot. But as far as like my thoughts on this book, the beginning was so beautifully and lyrically written. Like the first half of the book, I was like, I'm so in on this because it was all about a young girl who's caring for her mother who is chronically ill. Listeners know I've talked about this briefly, but I'm someone who deals with chronic illness.
Yeah.
So whenever I encounter books that handle this topic or handle it well, I'm really like, here we go. I'm in. And this was one of those because we're dealing with a lot of like complicated emotions of a young girl who's kind of forced to become an adult earlier
Hmm.
than she would have been because she's taking care of her parent. The guilt that her mother has for not being able to provide her daughter the type of childhood that the other kids have, the guilt that she has for not being able to provide and help for her family in the way that she should be able to because Morella and her mother are supposed to be, like weaving baskets and doing work in order to provide at the local like market basically and taking fish there too. But because her husband travels a lot for his work, fishing, she is kind of forced to rely on her daughter to take care of her. And there's a lot of guilt surrounding that I think is written really well in the first half of this story. And then when we get into the second half of the story, when Marilla's mother goes away for treatment for her disease making her more sick. This is where the story really shifts into the more fantastical part of the story. And this is
Okay.
where I kind of started to check out a little bit on the story. It, it's not to say that it wasn't well written. It was just like such a shift. And
Mm,
I kind of felt like the pacing was a little jarring to me, honestly, because the beginning of it was very slow and worked like almost just perfectly, I thought. And then when we get into the second half where there's a lot more world building occurring, it seemed like things were really just like boom, 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 boom. And it was a little jarring to deal with the
okay.
pacing of the novel. But,
Yeah.
uh, and I also just felt like the end of the book was pretty sudden. But overall, I think this, like for a YA, I think that it's a book that I would definitely recommend to young readers. I think that younger readers would like it, especially if you're somebody or you know a younger reader who is into like the sea and magic surrounding like the elements.
Yeah.
That's definitely what are you laughing about?
They're just like sometimes when people say something out loud, it just sounds funny when you were like, if someone is into the sea, and it just like, I like that thought of someone just being like, you know what I'm
Well,
really
I feel like
into?
there's a
The
lot of people that
sea.
are like really into like water and sea creatures and stuff like that, like
That is very
mermaids
fat.
and things of that nature.
There are just certain words that like or phrasings that always tickle me. I always remember I was once at like a retreat where a girl was having a very like emotional moment where she was like, it's really hard because I haven't been able to see my grandma in a while. She lives like kind of far away, like in another country. And it was so jarring to have that like
Wow.
phrasing in that way where I would like started laughing and then I was like, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I do not mean to laugh. That sounds awful, but like I just was not expecting I was not expecting the sentence to end there. And so I think that was a moment where you were like, someone's really into like the sea. I was like, I didn't expect the sentence to go there, and it just
Not into
tickled
the sea.
me. Yeah, like we went
Well,
into
if
the
someone
sea.
has an interest in oceans,
Yeah,
I
there.
should say, an oceanic interest, we'll say that maybe
Good.
works more. But yeah, I think I would definitely recommend it to young readers who are interested in the ocean and any kind of magic involving like the elements, because
Mhm.
that is spoiler involved in this book as well. But the beginning part of the book, I really wish Tessa would write a book strictly on like chronic illness and
Oh,
like, girl, give me a lit fic that is just on chronic illness because you can do it and I would devour that. Like, I
oh,
need it to be 400 pages. I would love it so much because the beginning portion of this book was really, really beautiful. And her
good.
writing is just very smooth and lyrical. And I just really appreciated that beginning portion of the book for sure. So that's
Yeah.
one of the books I read recently. And again, uh, these are just my own personal opinions, do not reflect the entire team. And if you want to find out entire team decisions, go over to beforewegoblog.com
Mhm.
and you can see all the work that everybody's been doing over there because the team's been putting together some great stuff.
Good.
Another thing that I read, Hannah, I listened to this on audio because I've been doing so many audiobooks recently because it's like all my brain can handle at the moment. Like, I don't know why I'm just like not able to consume anything but audiobooks at the moment. That
It's that
is what
time
my
of
brain
year.
wants.
Yeah.
It's just what my brain wants. And honestly, I've been getting some really good ones just because like my friend Jason on Instagram, he's been wanting to do some buddy reads, and I've just been lucky enough to be able to like some of the books that he suggested, they've been available through Libby.
Oh,
So
nice.
I recently did a buddy read with him. We read The Mountains Sing by Nguyen Phan Kema, which you read this as well, Hannah. And I want to look up the narrator for this because the narrator um, did an excellent job.
That's a
Um,
great book. I really loved that book.
oh my gosh, it's just such a roller coaster, honest, and not even roller coaster. It's just like you continue to go down even more and more. Just when you think all of the worst things have happened, more terrible things
Oh
continue
my
to
gosh.
happen. But it's such an interesting portrayal that I feel like we don't get as Americans. The so it's narrated by Quenya. Um, an excellent job to the narrator. Just absolutely phenomenal narration. But I feel like this is a really unique book because we don't, as Americans, get this type of perspective of the
Mhm.
Vietnam War, which is that of Vietnamese people
Yeah.
and their experience during this time. And I know you talked about this book previously, Hannah, and you can add in your own thoughts on it. But I really was just so in on all of the characters, honestly, but especially the grandmother. All of her stories were just so heart-wrenching to me. And I know, like, when Jason and I were discussing things, I had a harder time connecting with the grandmother at
Oh.
times and would be kind of like, well, the reason that they're, upset with her over this is because of this. And it was so much easier for me to connect with these women who were
Mhm.
undergoing some of the worst hardships of their entire lives and continuing to go from one hardship to the next, to the next, to the next, the most traumatic of events, and continue to handle these things with dignity. And I I was so impressed by the writing in this book and how even though it was incredibly dark and depressing to hear about, it was something that I feel like was really an important perspective to get. And I also couldn't stop listening because once I started listening to this, I was just drawn in and I would just like sit there and just like zone out just listening to this book because I was so absorbed in what was happening in the plot with these characters.
That's
And it's
awesome.
kind of told in the way of like a almost like flashback, and we're getting like flashbacks to this happening in a previous time. Then we eventually catch up with like the present day what our main character has going on. But it's a really, really beautiful, beautiful book that I absolutely loved.
I remember
Easily
like
5 stars.
I I have to like you're so right. I don't remember a ton of the plot of this book because I read so many books that sometimes they all blur together. But I do
Hmm.
remember thinking like this is such an important novel for the stark look at like the Vietnam War from a very like un-Western perspective, which like there
Hmm.
just needs to be more of. And I remember when I was reading it, I was like, I want to read a million more of these types of books that aren't like Western, like European or American views on wars with other
Hmm.
countries because it's so important seeing like how the lives were affected of like this multi-generational family. I do remember that being like incredibly
Yeah.
key. And like I remember the final section being incredibly like complicated and heart-wrenching and all of that stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, I good read. I'm glad you read it.
I know there were some moments too, like I was saying that like Jason and I were kind of a little at odds in like our like ways that we took certain events happening in the book. And I realized that I had a harder time letting giving grace to the children and
Hmm.
their anger for the adults and situations that were happening because as a reader we know the
Yeah.
context of why the adults are making X, Y, and Z decision. And for me, it was so much harder to get on the level of the children and I can't say understand, but I could understand why the children had certain feelings toward the adults in the novel, but it was a lot harder for me to not just like accept what was going on with them and why they were feeling that way. It was so much easier for me to connect with these women who were, like I said, going through extremely traumatic events and just watching them be able to just take the criticism from these young people who didn't really understand the entire story was a lot.
Yeah.
And it, I think that especially as women, it's hard to share stories sometimes. And I think that even if you haven't undergone like a high level of traumatic events in your life as a woman, there's still a certain degree of like womanhood that we can all connect on and understand that there are certain aspects of our lives that we as adult women will kind of just like shut away and not want to open up about and kind of keep hidden to protect ourselves or others. And I felt like that was happening on a very deep level within this book. and that the women in this book were making such sacrifices at the risk of themselves and also just the risk of their own mental health and
Yeah.
physical health too. And it was just really a fascinating take on the entire situation. But I really appreciated the grandmother and the mother character in the book and what they brought to the story
Yeah.
itself.
I looked up how long ago I was when I read this book because I was like, man, I have a terrible memory. And it was 2021. And I was like, oh, that's 3 years ago. It's fine that I can
I
only
was to say
remember
it wasn't that
vibes.
long ago because I remembered you reading it
Yeah, but
because
like I feel like 3 years ago I'm allowed to be like, I don't remember enough of that plot. I'm like,
no,
well, it was
no,
3 years
that's
ago.
fair.
Like, I was being a
That's
little
fair.
bit too hard on myself because I was like, did I read that last year? Is my memory that bad? And it's like, no, no, you're fine. You just read it 3 years ago, but it's an amazing book.
I remember when you read it though, that you really enjoyed it. And so whenever Jason had recommended, like, I want to read this book, can you get it? And I was like, it's available at Libby. And then I was like, oh, this will be good because I know Hannah really loved this one.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of clicking through a few here recently that you have read and enjoyed. So,
Oh.
but I'll leave it at just the two books that I'll talk about this time. But I also started watching Kevin Kneff himself.
I'm so excited you've watched
I'm not as far
this.
as you. You finished it by
I
now, I'm
finished
sure.
it. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
totally finished it. I binged it in like 3 days. So
Oh wow. Yeah, I haven't gotten that far, but I think I'm like 5 episodes in and it's really good.
it's
I
so
I really
good.
like it.
I feel like this is such a smart show, and it's one that like it's been popping off on because it just got on Netflix. Like everyone's talking
Yeah, so
about
it's
it right
available
now.
to more people.
It feels like it's just like one of those shows that like people watch it and they just want to discuss it more because it's so
Hmm.
unique and different than a
Hmm.
lot of other stuff that's out there, and it's like not on the nose and it's very subtle, and I feel like people are really buying into it in a way that like I don't know, feels different than a lot of other shows, and it just it's so
Yeah.
good. So
Yeah,
um
I totally agree with you on that.
and
And then
just
another
watching
show that I've
Allison
been
try to fall into everything and being so naive but yet like her own worst problem sometimes. It's great. So sorry. Go ahead.
another show I've been watching is the English Teacher on
Oh, is that good?
Hulu. It's there's only like 3 episodes out so far, and I've liked the 3 episodes. I think that the main character is really funny. So I'll see where the season goes, but it's definitely one where I'm like, I think they've definitely targeted the right audience with this because I was getting lots of ads for it, like you might enjoy this. And then I started and I was like, I do enjoy this, you're right. So it's a fun look at an English teacher who is a gay man who is teaching at a school that's supposedly like really conservative, but
Mm,
it doesn't look very much like my high school, so I don't know. It's a little, it looks more liberal than I would have thought, but it's there's a lot of funny moments, and I really like the delivery of the main character, and I think that he does a good job. So I'm
yeah.
excited to see where the season goes for further episodes.
I
And then I've been
saw
watching Rings of Power.
Oh, yes, of course. How's that been going so far?
I'm turning a corner on the show where I'm like, you
Okay.
know what? The music is awesome. The sets are awesome. They brought in a character and I was nervous about it, but I was like, you know what? I can live with this interpretation and I do appreciate this interpretation of this character. And I think that that was fine. I
Yeah.
like that. And I
Okay.
think I'm at the point where with the show where I'm like, you know what? Season one, I enjoyed. Season two, the pace is a lot faster and everything.
Hmm.
And I think I'm just starting to like accept, like, you know what, this is condensed timeline and
Hmm.
there's going to be some creative choices made because they're dealing with such a condensed timeline that obviously they're not going to be able to get like thousands of years into 5 seasons, if they even get
Right.
5 seasons. We'll see. But I would say, like if you are not like holding so dearly to your heart the Cimmerillion, like you should watch it because it has good vibes and there are some fun characters and there are some like callbacks to famous moments in
Oh, nice.
Tolkien's works that I think are great.
Okay.
So yeah, I appreciate it and I'm definitely gonna keep watching and I just think that some of these properties get a little too much hate, looking
Yeah.
at you, Star Wars. And I wish that people would kind of go into them more with like, just let's just enjoy the fact that we can have more within this universe, this fandom that we all love,
Yeah.
and not be like demolishing things that people put a lot of hard work into just because it's not like, well, Luke Skywalker would have said this instead.
Hmm.
So, you know what? Let's just have fun and enjoy properties and being able to get back into fandoms and universes and have
Yeah.
more things to watch. So,
Fair
Hannah,
enough.
what have you been reading and watching?
So, for reading, I finished. Let me pull up. I had my reading lesson, then I tried to do something else. Sometimes when we're talking, like, we obviously always do Laura first, and that is great, and I love it. But I'll like look to remind myself, and then I'll be like, "Oh, I need to update what I read today," and then I'll update that, and I'm like, "I got off the page that told me what I should be talking about."
I do that sometimes too, where I'm just like looking up something, and then I'm like, I forgot to look up this. And then I'm on a totally different page than what I've recently read.
Exactly. So I finished P. Djeli Clark's The Dead Cattail Assassins
I have that
recently.
one, so how is it?
It's so good. I love him so much. I
Hmm.
love all of his works. I'm a huge stan. Everything I've read, it's been my favorite. I listed him as one of my comps in my query letter because I am
Mm.
obsessed with him, and I really aspire to be him as a writer. So yeah, I enjoyed the Dead Cattail Assassins. I will say that like when the story
Do you follow
first
him on
started.
Instagram? Because I aspire for you to be as funny as him on Instagram.
I do follow him, but I don't know if I see it all the time. Um, so I will say that like this book follows a woman who is undead. Her name is
Hmm.
Aveen, and she has signed up for an 1,000-year contract where she is an assassin with the Dead Cattail Assassins, and she has to go kill someone. She has a job, and it turns out to not be what it seems, and leads her into like her past in some ways. And I really expected this book to go a lot of different ways, and it always surprised me. Like I love his work because I'm always shocked by the turns and twists he takes. I'm never expecting it. I'm always interested, and this was the same. And the way he is able to like weave his tale while also being like really funny. Like there are moments where there's a moment I was laughing out loud because she's talking to this person and she's like, "Well, we're friends." And he's like, "We're like colleagues. We're not friends." And he's like, "Are you actually offended by this? We never hang out." And she's like, I thought we were friends." And he's like, "We can be work friends." And she's like, "Really?" And she gets so excited, and I was like, this is incredibly humorous to have like this like assassin who's supposed to be very prickly, and she's like,
Within this type of story. Yeah.
yeah, and have her be like, I thought we were friends. I just think there's a lot
Interesting.
of heart in this like very specific type of fantasy world, and he does it without like making it feel corny or anything like that. So I just always appreciate that. And that's stuff I've noticed in a lot of his works is he does have like humor, or he has relationships that make sense,
Hmm.
that because like I even in olden days people were friends, people gossiped, and I feel like sometimes they take it too seriously where it's like we must only talk about the plot and we never talk about anything else. So great time. I had a great time. It's 208 pages. It
Yeah,
is
I was
type
gonna say, I feel like Clark writes some shorter works.
he does a lot of
Maybe that's like a
novellas.
sweet spot for him.
Yeah, he does a lot of novellas, and he packs a punch in like all of his. And it is small September, guys. So get out your books that are less than 300 pages, and that one qualifies.
Mhm.
So go get it today. I
And also check out the
also,
Lies of the Ajungo. Okay,
yeah,
yes.
check out the Lies of the Jungo, not not pushing up a an upcoming interview that we have or anything
N
like that. No, no, no,
Not
no.
me, just like
No, 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 no.
constantly telling people to read that book. Okay, continue, Hannah.
I also read I finished the Indian Lake trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones, The Angel of Indian
Yeah,
Lake.
yeah.
This is his thriller series. I have so many mixed feelings on these because like I really enjoy listening to them, but I also zone out a lot and I never want to
Mm,
rewind. Like it's one of those where I'm like, okay, yeah, that probably happened, and I'm fine because I think sometimes they're a little bit long for slashers. Like
okay.
it's diminishing returns. But overall, I had a good time. I think it's always hard because he built up like this very fantastical world, and I think sometimes he's mixing like thriller slashers that he wants like real world stakes, but he also wants
Hmm.
like big bad monster ghost type things. and sometimes they don't always mix well, but I also am a slasher person who usually deals with real world slashers and not the like Halloween franchise where, or
Okay.
Jason, Friday the 13th stuff where they have a little bit more like mysticism. Um what'd you say?
I was doing the
Oh,
ah.
okay. Thank you for that. I thought you were just trying to
You're
say something and
welcome.
you froze. So I thought it was good. I'm glad I like did the trilogy, especially as we get like closer to spooky season. And I don't think these are bad by any means, but I actually think the second one was my favorite of the trilogy.
Okay.
Just because this one felt a little bit messier, like everyone's just kind of running around doing their own stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just felt overall it wasn't the best. It just didn't feel like it stuck the landing quite for me after I read like two other books about this, Jade. But overall, good time. So that was my audiobook, and then those are the only two I'll go over right now for watching. So I am planning a wedding famously, as you all know. Um and I have been going a little crazy, as Laura knows, usually off mic, but I usually tell you guys about it. So, when I get like that, I usually go on old habits and I just rewatch Law and Order SVU, a show I'm not sure I even like, but I will watch. But I didn't do that this time. Instead, I watched the Netflix documentary series Worst Roommate Ever and Worst
Oh
Ex
no.
Ever.
How were they?
Honestly, interesting storytelling. So like these are interesting for like, oh, it's just like true crime-ish stuff, like so for worst roommates ever, they go over that one woman who lived out in California and was like murdering unhoused people who were living in her house and
Oh
burying
my
them in her
gosh.
backyard.
Ugh.
Um, and then there was another person who like he was a squatter, and he knew how to like work the system really well. And so he like would move into people's houses and just never leave because it was really hard to
Mm.
kick people out. And then there was another man who was kind of a straightforward, like he thought he was in love with her, this his roommate, and she wasn't in love with him. And then he was like trying to cover up the fact that he likely murdered her. I won't ruin anything. Um, and then there was another one where it was like a charismatic athlete who like was just moving around countries and doing stuff like that. So the series, like the talking points are interesting. I was mostly playing Stardew Valley while I was watching them. They're good background noise. But the one thing I will say about both of these docu series is so how like in a lot of documentaries, like especially with the, Quiet on Set one, like they have breakaways where there's voiceovers and you have to put something on the screen during it. Like during those, they would like put up court transcripts or TV like clips or, things like that. What they decided to do here was to put up little cartoons of moments happening that like AI could have drawn, Laura. They're
Mm.
so
I
bad.
don't like that.
And every time it comes up, I'm like, I'm always sitting there like, well, why'd you make that choice? Like, it's not good. It's actually quite
Yeah.
bad. And so it's so funny and so hilariously bad to watch these random little cutaway cartoon characters. So, it's fine, but it's also horrible. And I don't know which one I fall, but it
Hmm.
definitely is something you can put on and just wash over you. Like
I feel like
so
that's most of those true crime Netflix documentaries for me. I have a
yeah.
hard time kind of getting into those at times.
And those were technically created by USA. So like I don't know, it's weird. And then there's like worst ex ever where there's like a guy who like
So they
lied about
each episode follows like a different
yeah.
example of this. Okay.
Yes. So like there's just some really there's like guys who have like really bad dating histories where you're watching it and you're just like, how did this guy like get away with it for so long? And so I haven't watched all of Worst Ex Ever. I mostly was doing Worst Roommate Ever because the one on the squatter was so scary. Like it's just terrifying to like listen to this entire man's
Hmm.
story and like the things he did to people. It's really awful. So yeah, that's stuff I've been watching. Yeah. But and then I'm trying to think of if I've watched anything else recently. Oh, I watched the movie Clue for the first time.
I've never seen that.
Okay, it's a fantastic time. We should watch it next week
Is
when you're
it?
here. Yeah, like it's just like very campy and very like it's very funny. I enjoyed my
Is it an older
time.
movie? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, so do you not so Clue was a movie that was made in 1985. It has like a stacked cast. It has like Christopher Lloyd, it has Leslie Ann Warren, it has Tim Curry, it has Madeline Kahn, and it's just like this very campy movie that was made off of the game Clue, where all these people come and they all have pseudonyms when they come in that they've been given. So Colonel Mustard, Mrs. White, Mrs.
Sure,
Peacock,
just like
Mr.
the
Green,
game.
like just like the game. And then they're gifted a bunch of murder tools, and then murder
Hmm.
starts ensuing, and you don't.
So it's
uh,
very similar to the play then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know if I've
There's a
ever seen
play,
the
a
play.
stage play, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that there was a stage play, and I wonder if it's
Hmm.
I wonder if the stage play is probably based on the movie then.
It
Yeah, I think
likely
it's
is.
yeah. And the original movie is like very well known because it had multiple endings and like people like I was talking to like my sister-in-law and she was like, "Oh yeah, I used to watch it on HBO and you never knew which ending you were going to get, which like causes you to watch
Mm,
it
that's
all the
cool.
time." But the version that's on HBO now, it gives you like all three endings, so you kind of
Mm.
get to watch all the different ones that happen. So but I had like they both were like my partner and my sister-in-law were like, "You've never seen this before?" And I'm like, "No, I've never seen it." And I'm like, "But I know quite a bit about it." Like
Uh-huh.
I had a lot of knowledge about it. So I knew about the different endings. I knew in the original like ending who had done it, but I didn't know about every single one of them. So I did get to watch them and it's a good time. It was really funny. I liked it a lot. I laughed out loud. So, just some really random stuff. But should we dive in to bum bum the year of the Dresden, or do you want to just keep talking
Yes.
about Kevin can F
Dresden
himself?
Files.
Um, the Dresden Files. Um, so like I said, we have recorded this weeks apart, so I do apologize if I get confused by anything. But we left off with Harry escaping
What chapter are we on?
chapter 23.
Okay, good. Got it here.
So Harry is escaping the sewer area. He's being chased by a wild beast, and Susan's there to help him out of a sticky situation.
All
Um,
throughout this, there's like Deirdre's like screaming, and that would be terrifying, honestly, to like hear this monster like sh shrieking,
yeah.
like
And
oh,
Susan's also like, what was that? And Harry's like, you do not want to find out.
like
And so they're
just don't
kind of
worry
like
about it.
running down the like tunnels and he's like, what happened? And she's like, we went to get Michael and Cheryl seemed to know exactly how to find you. And in this moment I thought it was going to be something cool, like, because we were assigned to the duel together, he can always find me, something like that, where like Harry could sense he was in danger, but it's actually just it wasn't, it was just divine intervention. And I was like, that's more boring for some reason. Like um
Well, are you talking about like Martin waiting in the car, or what? Do you?
no, I was talking about because he's like, how did you guys find me? And she's like, well, I went to go get Michael. I ran into Shiro and he seemed to know exactly how to find you.
Yeah, he knew about their whereabouts.
And
Yeah.
I was
Hmm.
like, oh, it's probably some like cool like dual bond. Like he has to know where Harry is and if he's in danger. And Harry's like, oh yeah, Michael used to do that. It's like divine intervention. And I was like, well, that's a
Yeah.
stupid reason. I was more excited about the
Let's
dual
just explain
bond.
it away.
Just like a hand waving, like we found you. It's fine. And then
Do you think that
during
there's like some missed opportunities within the magic of these books where it's like, oh, you could have made that a little bit cooler and you didn't?
I'm so sorry. He could have made it so cool by being like, oh, yeah, because we were going into this duel together, we are inherently connected until it is done. And then, like, Harry could be flashing back to what Shiro's being like tortured with or like information, but he's
Hmm.
just like,
Yeah.
divine intervention, hand wave away. And I was like, well, that's so boring. I don't like that.
Yeah.
And so during like this little run, Harry asks about Susan talking to the one guy at the art thing and be talking about a
Hmm.
fellowship. And she's kind of like, not really the time, Harry. Could we talk about this any other time?
Well, okay. And as they're like talking about this, they're like climbing this ladder and they're like, we see eyes down there. And Susan's like, I got it handled. And she drops just a grenade, just drops it down, down the ladder. And
Very
he's like,
chill.
is that a bomb? Like, what the heck?
Well, and then Martin's waiting outside for them because of course he
Hmm.
is. And they race back to Harry's house. Susan's tattoos are still really showing
Yeah.
sharply and her eyes and everything. They also have to jump out of a moving car, and Harry goes,
Why not?
"This is insane." And Susan
Why
points out
is
that
that the thing that like baffles him though? Like, what the heck? Even
it also
Susan,
doesn't make sense because Susan's like, "You did this 2 books ago. The only difference
yeah, she
is
calls
I
him on
have
it.
to jump out with you." And so they get to Harry's house. Harry realizes like there's a curse coming after him that's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah,
And he
it's like a
believes
bad
it's
luck spell, an entropy curse.
and he's like, it might be Nicodemus, and he locks them inside with wards. And Susan is like, so I have to leave immediately, and you can't ask me any questions. And Harry's like, he does that thing where it's like, Susan, and she's like, don't talk to me right now. I must leave. And he's like, but that's what I wanted to talk to you about. You can't leave. And so he's like, the wards keep us locked into Susan. She tells him that she's been using too much power and she's hungry. He goes to clean up his leg because it's
Because
bleeding.
he's bleeding. So
And
of course
when
she's gonna be like losing it.
and when he comes out, she's like, "You're gonna have to find a way to hold me back." So Harry has to go get something, but he's worried about sudden movements because it might put her into a feral feeding frenzy.
Which
And so,
is just like so funny and at the same time terrifying. Like I didn't know what to think of that, honestly, where it's just like if he moves too suddenly, she's gonna like attack him like an animal. Like what I know this should be sad, but it's somewhat comical to me.
I mean, it's one of those things where I'm reading it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense in this crime detective novel
Yeah.
for this specific scene.
Of
We needed
course
this
this would
scene.
happen for him. He
So
would
he
get
tells
locked away with
her.
his lover who will
So,
attack him.
so he's like, "Tell me about the fellowship." And we find out it's the Fellowship of Saint
St.
Giles.
Giles.
Giles, which is very funny if you think
Giles,
about
yeah.
James Marsters reading this because he was in Buffy and Buffy's main like adult confidant was Giles. So full
Hmm.
circle. Um
Wasn't funny for me because I didn't know that. So I was just like Jim
the
Butcher with another classic name.
Oh my gosh. So the Fellowship combat the Red Court, and they're filled with people like Susan who are half infected. And they're trying to
Mhm.
stop the Red Court and everything bad that they do. That's why she has the tattoos. They gave them to her as a sign when she's putting herself in danger by
Yeah, they're like
using
the
too much
warning, which
magic.
is terrifying because it's like, how many times have we seen Martin's tattoos? Like he's always just on the edge of losing control.
That's a, that's the thing, Laura. He's always angry. And
And well,
so
I feel like I'm nervous about Martin though. Like
I don't know. He's boring though.
he's a
Uh,
threat that we haven't considered.
And so Harry
Colin
gets to the
Robinson.
drawer and he grabs magic ropes and ties Susan up with them. And I
Well, and
said,
of course it had to be
quote
like
unquote,
a
and then I put
kinky thing.
kinky. Yeah, I said kinky. And I go, and it becomes so kinky because they make love.
Mhm.
And we had to read a Jim Butcher sex scene.
So I have written here like he leaves and comes back and she lunges at him, but he was prepared and sent her back and tied her up with magical ropes. I said, this is where the story becomes horrific because we have to read a sex scene. And it's true. Oh,
So they, have sex. They admit that they love one another. And
they love each
then
other. And then the
fade
next
to black. And
cut
then the
away
next
to
morning.
Tai Chi.
And then Harry wakes up and Susan has been healed
Is
by his penis. That's what I put
she's
down
doing Tai
here.
Chi?
Yeah,
Like
she's
just
doing Tai Chi.
random. Okay.
Yeah. And they kind of have a breakdown of all that Harry missed, how Martin fought Susan on going to get him and reiterating that they got Shiro, yada, yada,
Hmm.
yada. And then Harry says, based on how Shiro handled himself, he has a long-standing feud with Nicodemus.
Hmm.
Um, and isn't Nicodemus from the Rats of Nim? Like, isn't
I
that
have
the
no idea.
I just feel like I've heard the name Nicodemus before, in a
I
cartoon that I
I'm
grew
not
up with.
sure.
Nicodemus rats
Nicodem
of
what I've never
yeah,
even
Nicodemus is the first rat who discovered his ability to read in the rats of Nim. So
interesting.
I kept thinking about the rats of Nim when I was reading this book, and I was like, "Isn't that his name?" And he has like glowy little eyes. Have you ever seen the rats of Nim?
I have not.
Great movie. You'd love it. Oh my gosh. What's the little mouse's name? Oh, Mrs. Something. I freaking loved the secrets of Nim, the secret of Nim. Mrs. Brisby, Mrs. Brisby. I always wanted her to fall in love with the very hot rat in that movie.
Very
So
hot
anyway,
rat.
weird tangents that we go down on.
Okay,
And
Nicodemus.
so
That's
Nicodemus.
clearly what this was based on. So it's not biblical.
It's nothing. It's about a rat. So they plan to go get Michael and Sonia to come help them save Shiro. So they go back to Michael's palatial Wrigleyville home, where
Again, how? Father
where
Hill's there
Father
now.
Hill's there. He says that Sonia and Michael were detained on trumped up charges in St. Louis, and someone wanted to get them
And
out of the
Velmont is
way.
there too.
And so Fort Hill gives them a rundown of Nicodemus. He's been around for a while. They don't know how long. And that noose around his neck is likely what Judas was hanged from. And it's there always, just like giving him a
So this
magical
is something I
tie.
actually do like appreciate about this book where there are like significant things that are given like magical significance, where it's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, well obviously this would have significance and be like tied to uh you know, being more powerful or whatever. And I do appreciate like those type of call outs in this,
Yeah,
but at
I
the
did
same
like
time,
that.
there's just so many like other things happening that it's like you got one good thing and a lot of confusing things.
A
So
lot of confusing things. And they also kind of talk about the coin that Nicodemus tried to give Harry, and it was from Lashiel, who's the seducer, which
mhm.
I put in
The
quotation
web
marks.
weaver.
So perfect for Harry, the seducer. And Harry considers going to the underworld to see if they can help him. Fort Hill is like, please don't do that. That's a dumb idea. But then Harry first has to go talk to Anna, and I put in
Mhm.
parentheses, I forgot that she existed.
Yeah, Velmont's been just like chilling at Michael's house apparently,
Yeah,
which was a
she's
weird
just
place
sleeping
for her,
upstairs.
but
And then I think, like, more and more as we read these books, I'm always like, Charity is being tortured in her own house at all
you know what?
times.
She can never catch a break. Like she just really wants Michael to get away from Harry Dresden and get out of all these
She just
shenanigans.
wants to
And
drink her Diet Cokes and raise her 10 million children. And
that's
Harry
not gonna
keeps
happen.
bringing her random women who are
Yeah.
thieves into the home.
No.
So he kind of talks to Anna, and this is a weird section where he's like, "Did you make a deal with Marconi?" And I had a moment where I was like, "Didn't he hear Marconi's voice in the prior section?
He
Why
already
is it a
knew.
question?"
He
Yeah,
already
like,
knew.
why did he ask her that? He knows the answer.
Hmm.
Um, and Anna's like, it was always through a third party, and I don't really know what happened, but I just miss my dead friends. And then she like
Which it seems odd because like it didn't seem like she was that attached to them anyways, but we find out in like 2 seconds because like Harry's like, you know what, I'm gonna call Father Vincent and he wants to meet at a crappy hotel again, which
of course,
shady.
shady.
And so then while he's doing that, Belmont's like, you know what, I'm gonna steal the Blue Beetle. And it's like, ah, there we go.
Yeah.
So she's been acting all this time.
So Harry goes to Father Vincent. Harry threatens Vincent with a gun, and it's revealed that Vincent is a demon. Called it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
Michael and Sonia are also there. Uh Harry, I put
They just
Harry.
show up.
Yeah, well, because they stopped being detained.
Mhm.
So I said Harry figured it out because he's a detective.
Yeah,
Because he was talking to Father Forehill. Forehill mentioned a tattoo, and this Father Vincent doesn't have a tattoo.
of course.
And so he was obvi evil, and he's like a snake man. And we find out that
Hmm.
Snake Man is working with Nicodemus. He was sent when the quote unquote church mice, the thieves, stole the shroud. They took out Gaston, who told them everything, and killed Father Vincent when they discovered that the church was sending him. And the Snake Man pretended to be Father Vincent and hired Harry because demons are lazy. I did like that
Just
fact.
so weird. Like I
Honestly,
it's like,
nope. 10 out
okay,
of 10 detail. Demons being just lazy and outsourcing their searching. Great
okay.
note. I believe it. So Nicodemus has something planned for tonight. They're going to use the shroud to create a plague, and we find out that like Gaston died using even like small materials of the shroud. So that was
So
like
like,
their
but they're gonna
test.
use like the airport to
Mhm.
like
Yes.
make it widespread.
So Michael goes to kill the Denarian because he's a demon, he's a snake man, and he can.
Mhm.
But then he becomes Quintus Cassius because he has to be the most weird name you could ever
We
imagine.
have to have a strange name. Like,
Quintus Cassius, who was serving the will of Silurial, and he asks for a chance to mend his ways. And Sonia and Michael are like, our hands are tied. And Harry is like, are you kidding me? And they're like, I have to give him the opportunity. And Harry points out, he's like, he's obvious, like he's sitting there twiddling his thumbs like a little evil man. Like, he's lying. And they're like, that's not our job
that's
to
not
job.
right. We can't do that. And I'm like,
Uh,
okay, well, he's gonna like kill everyone with this big apocalypse.
and
So
Harry's
why
like, you
don't we
just gotta
just
go get another coin and work with another demon. And I'm like, do you ever think the demons get jealous of like, you got my leftovers? Or like, I was his favorite demon who was inhibiting his body. Like, what a weird time. Um, so he they Harry is like, well, I swore no oath, and he gets Cassius to admit that Nicodemus will head to the airport, like you said. Uh
Mhm.
Harry's like, well, I'll meet you guys there. And then he leaves for his duel. And I'm like, Harry, tell them a little bit more information. They can't just
He
be
never
waiting
tells
at the
information. And
airport
it
for
blows my
you.
mind how he thinks he's giving information. And he says all the time, like, I'm not going to keep any secrets from Murphy. And this is a perfect time to mention this because he's calling Murphy to fill her in. But he, like, always says, I'm not going to withhold any details from you guys. But then even when he's quote unquote giving all the information, I'm like, you're not giving all the information.
Also, Harry, like, they could be waiting for you for an hour and the plague could go place. Like, he has to be like,
Right.
I have to go into a life or death situation. Maybe don't wait for me. Maybe
No.
I don't need to be the hero of this particular story. But no, because it's Harry. So anyway, he does call Murph and he tells her everything, and she's like, "This ain't good." And Harry is also wanted for questioning? Question mark.
Hmm.
He wants her to hint to
Rudolph is like
Rudolph, yeah,
after.
that the Shroud is going to leave Chicago so that they like overrun the airport so
It's
that
basically
no
just
one
slow
can
him
leave.
down, basically.
Yeah, and so the Shroud can't leave Chicago pretty much.
And he doesn't have his regular duster, the naked one, so the naked Susan
There's
duster,
also a
so he
moment
has to
where
wear the
Susan is
canvas
like,
duster.
she's like, "Ugh, you know what's bad about dusters? I can't see your butt." I'm like, okay, well,
Okay,
she's
well,
27.
yeah.
So Susan is there with Harry. She's going to be a second, and they go into Wrigleyville. They talk to Thomas slash Ortega. They head into Wrigley for the final
And he
showdown.
tries to quote Clint Eastwood at this moment.
The archive comes out and takes out a death stone, which is like anti-life, that it's not of this world, which I did like that thought.
Hmm.
And it's going to be a battle of wills with the death stone, like kind of being like an
Yeah.
insect like creature trying to go to one of them as they push it
They're
towards the other
trying to
one with
like
their
move it
will.
towards each other, basically, and whoever has the stronger will is going to move it
And
farther.
Ortega wants Harry to admit surrender right away so they can move on and to save the people he loves. And Harry is like, you said if I did this, all the people would be
Well, first he
safe.
burps.
Forgot about that. He's like, I ate a taco earlier tonight.
It's just proof where it's like, are you taking this seriously?
No.
Apparently not.
Harry
Oh
was just like, I
gosh.
guess I'm gonna die, and a lot of people are gonna get the plague because I never told Michael not to wait for me.
Oh
Um,
my.
and so Harry burps, and yeah, Ortega's like, I'm gonna kill everyone you love, and Harry's like, you said you keep them protective, and Ortega's like, I lied, and so
Which obviously, like,
yeah,
obviously
Harry
they
knew
tipped him
he
off from
was.
this like from the beginning. They tipped him off
Everyone
on
has
this,
told you he is
like
untrustworthy.
yeah,
Every
like
single
this is
person.
not what the motive is. Like
Yeah.
clearly not.
So
Oh,
they're very frustrated and they're fighting. Harry's like, you're a murderer. You killed children like he did
and
in the
his true
last
self
section.
is revealed too by this
And yes,
sphere.
and Ortega is very ugly and terrible and da,
He
da, 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 da.
he
And
always describes vampires in this like really disgusting, like horrific way, and it makes me curious, like what's going to happen when Susan becomes full vampire because obviously he's not letting that go. But it's like, is she going to be this
well, I think
beautiful
she can never
vampire
become a
that
vampire because she would lose her soul in the process. Like they don't lose their
oh
personalities, but they do lose their souls. So I don't think she could ever be a vampire technically if they're going to be together in future novels. Like I think it's always going to be some half like I'm
oh
battling my
see
inner
I felt like
demons.
it was gonna be interesting for him to
Oh,
get over like
No, I don't
She's
think
not
they're ever
pretty.
gonna go that deep. I think she just can't be a vampire. It's also very funny because I hate in these sections where Harry's always like they're evil and disgusting. And the implication in a lot of these books is also that the vampires find themselves evil and
Yes.
disgusting. Where I'm like, if you were a vampire without a soul and that's what your true self looked like, I'm pretty
Would you care?
sure you're not holding yourself to human beauty
Beauty
standards.
standards,
Like,
yes.
why
And
would you ever do
I also
that?
just like I hate all the connotations of like not pretty equals bad. Like,
Well, and like
like
again, I used to watch Angel and Buffy. I've seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer recently, and they do have moments where they're like, "Well, I make myself beautiful, so I'm tantal like I make myself beautiful to humans to be
mhm.
tantalizing to humans." But also, like, if vampires are not near humans, a lot of times they just have their vampire face on because they don't care because they're not
Right.
around humans. So why are they beholding themselves to beauty standards of Harry frickin' Dresden?
It doesn't make sense.
Anyway,
It just
but you
doesn't.
want to know what else Ortega hasn't revealed yet? A fake arm.
And
Because
why?
Harry starts winning, and Ortega's like, "Well, I have a Deus arm," like, and he pulls off a fake arm, and he's sitting there holding a gun on Harry, and he's like, "If you try to kill me, I'll kill you first." And I'm like, "What is happening right
It
now?"
was
We have
so random. Like, you know what? I have a gun. I'm just okay. And then it's just like I my note just says chaos.
It's chaos. I didn't know how to take notes on this section because I said
Because
someone
it's just like there's shots fired. Susan's attacking and trying to get the gun.
I'm like,
He's
someone shoots Ortega immediately. We find out it's
well, and like a
Martin.
bunch of Red Court people start like flying all over the place. There's
They start
Harry's
jumping.
flagoing everywhere. Like there's Legos flying all over the place. Kincaid's like grabbing the archive and heading out,
He's
and
like
it's just like,
running
what's
with this small
happening?
child. Like, and so a dozen Red Corps people come in. Thomas goes to help Harry, but Susan's knocked out because she has to be helpless somehow. And so Thomas has to help Susan. The vampires go after Kincaid, but they have to deal with the archive, who takes them all out. And Kincaid is like, "Hey, I think you would have won." Not all of this had happened. And like
Like, who
Ortega
even
is
cares
dead.
about that at this point?
Ortega's dead. They mark the trial concluded. And like the
Well, because
archive takes the
everything's on
Mortai
fire and there
in.
was a ton of a ton of
This
shooting and
ruined
everything.
Wrigleyville. And so Harry's like, "Well, I guess I have to head to the airport." So
It's just like,
and
why was this even included
I
at
don't
this point?
know. I'm so mad that we had to have this little Wrigleyville battle where everyone's like, "Charge!" Like, what's
Honestly, most
happening?
of this stuff with Ortega, I'm just kind of like, again, we're dealing with another novel where the vampires were brought in and didn't need to be here.
Right. Like I feel like if you had just had like, "Oh, we're at war for another book," and then this happened like in a third book or in like the next book where it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's the primary. This is two diametrically opposed
Just
plots and they have very
quit
little to
trying
do
to bring
together.
vampires into this,
Like
please.
Harry didn't even tell Michael about the duel, which he had been hunting him down
Oh.
for hours in this previous chapters. So it just doesn't make sense. Anyway, so Harry has to head to the airport. He, Sonia, and Michael go to the airport. They head for the chapel, which is the best location to unleash the plague, or where they'll go because demons like a little religion sprinkled in their
Yeah, why
evil.
not?
I
Just
don't
love
know.
to they're already fallen angels. They want to
Sonia
just rub it in a little more.
Sonia is also packing heat. And like they're charging down to like kill all these people. And they do find Shiro, has been
Hmm.
bleeding out for a very long time.
Yeah.
He is close to the brink of death, but we find out he's still alive with enough time to give Harry his blade to find the next person for it,
Of
I
course it would
guess.
be just enough time to be Harry Dresden.
Take my blade. And
You're
Harry
the
and
best person in the world. And then he dies. And
well, not before he's like, "Sonia, you are a good friend. Michael, you are the best of us all." And then he just
and then
dies
it's like,
as his
and Harry,
token Asian man who
yeah, of
has to
course he was going
die.
to.
Oh my gosh, he's
Why
just
do
so
okay,
sweet and kind in all
obviously any
moments.
kind of diversity, it's like, nope. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Sonia can only be here for an entire book and then he must leave
No,
immediately.
no, no, no.
Um,
Can't have that.
and
Diversity? What?
so
No.
Harry gets the blade and he's like, I don't know what I'll do with this. I don't believe in Jesus. And we're like, well, neither does Sonia. That's why you had that moment earlier in the book. So you know that you can hold the weapon even though
Right.
you're not the best person in the world. But because you are the best person in the world.
He
They
is the
find
best
out
person in the world.
also Shiro is during this moment, he's like, Nicodemus, he fears you, Harry. And it's like, what?
It's unbelievable that that is like I
And,
can't believe that he actually fears him. Like
and
I don't think that's true.
because they shut the planes down using Rudy, he had to do his backup plan, which he still told
The
Toshiro, which I
train,
don't, yeah, which is the train to St. Louis, where Michael and Sonia just were.
Union Station. Yep.
So Harry has to call in for reinforcements, in the way of Marconi, who comes in with a helicopter to
A
save them all.
helicopter.
And Harry starts going,
And
they
also it's
walked
confusing to
in.
me because I'm like, why is he actually flying it? Doesn't he have like all these minions to do things for him? He
Also,
takes on a lot of things himself.
they shut down the airports. How? How is this
When
happening
you're a
right now?
gangster, you can do anything.
Do you think Marconi's going to be held by the laws and
Yeah,
air?
right. He's like Taylor Swift. He's off the air.
So, and
They
he
can't
also,
track those flights anymore.
it's a moment where they like start swooping in, and Harry's like, Ride of the Valkyries is going on in my mind. And so I put my notes. Da, 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 da.
But it's just like, Harry, stop.
So anyway, they go after Nicodemus in a helicopter flown by Marconi. Harry reveals that Marconi wasn't after him because again, Harry is an excellent detective, not on the page. We just hear about it later.
Sure.
He's just like, so you were actually after Father Vincent because you smelled something hokey, and so your people were trying to shoot him down. And I noticed you were surprised when I said you were trying to shoot me, so I knew it wasn't about me. And I was like, oh, I actually thought Marconi's people were
You
just double
didn't.
crossing him, but sure, that
Yeah.
works too.
Way to make it
Um,
more complicated. Okay.
and Marconi won't reveal why he wants the shroud. But Harry is like, I'm gonna find this out later in the book. So they go after Nicodemus at Union Station. They have to like fight him to this watery area. Like
Hmm.
it's confusing.
They're all sparring, like trading around the
They're all
cane
just
of
and then
Shiro's, like tossing it around.
like Michael is shot, and Harry is like, I have left Charity a widow, but he had a bulletproof vest on because Charity was like, here, my asshole husband put this on. Talk about Kevin can go fuck himself. Michael can go fuck himself. So, um, and anyway, so
There's
they,
also like this cat-like thing that like walks through the train, and Harry's like, "Am I
well, at one
attracted?
point,
Am I attracted to this?" And I'm
at one
like,
point,
"What the
it's like,
heck?
they walk in, and it's like this creature in the back of the train, and they're like, dead. And one of them goes, napping. What?
Why is it napping?
Why
Why is
is
it
it
taking a nap?"
thing? And so they fight Nicodemus. They're all trading off. Marconi has the
Mhm.
shroud. He's gonna get away, and then Harry like falls into this river and is like choking Nicodemus with the noose because he realizes it's
Yes,
the only thing that could have power over him.
is to kill
But
him with that.
he is still unable to really kill him, and then he's drowning, and Marconi pulls him out with the shroud and Michael.
Hmm.
So Marconi is good, and then we just like jump into chapter 33 where it's like, well, this is
It's
a
just
wrap
like
up.
flash into like, oh,
Harry's in the
Harry's
car.
waking up. He's like in and out of consciousness basically, and surrounded by people. And then all of a sudden he's in the morgue with like while Butters
Butters,
is
and he's
working
like,
on him.
this is so scary. This is not good. And
And then he
Butters is
wakes up
like,
at Michael's,
yeah,
and Charity's taking care of him
of
because,
course,
of
because
course,
she's the freaking saint in all of this. And then anyway, so he also like Charity gives him a letter from Shiro where we find out like Shiro was dying anyways, I guess, which is why he was
of
so
course, of
keen to die.
course.
The
I'll
shroud.
sacrifice myself because I'm already dying. I knew that I had cancer. Of course.
And so like Marconi is gone with the shroud. Harry kind of has his little powwow with everyone where they're like, well, we didn't kill Nicodemus, but we got away from him. And then Nicodemus just pulls up on the lawn one day and throws one of the coins at Harry. So Harry now
Yeah.
has an evil coin that will tempt him for at least another book or at least 4 chapters of the next book.
But we
Just
also have
normal
to
dress
mention
and
that
stuff.
like Marconi took the shroud because
Okay,
we find
that
out that
was
his daughter is in a coma and is
yeah.
like he's trying to use the shroud to heal her and he's praying and Dresden like shows up and he's like, I need the shroud. If you don't get it back to me in 3 days, I'm gonna kill you. And it's
And then he was
like,
like,
what?
Marconi tricked me with the soul case. I knew he had a secret, but I didn't know what it was. And I was like, how is that tricking you, Harry? What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. And then he kind of goes back to Molly and he talks to his namesake, Harry, as a child. Yes, and that's when he gets the Lashiel's black coin. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I have to have faith. I don't know how I will. We also have a moment where during this book, I think I forgot to mention it. Like he and Susan have a conversation where he's like, we could make this work. And she's like, so I'm leaving because I have bigger things to do with the fellowship and I need to like fight the Red Corps. Are you willing
Mm-hmm.
to come with me and fight
Well,
with
she
me? And he's
offers
like,
for him to go
yeah. And he's like, no. And she's like, okay, well, I'm not willing to stay here for you. I have
because he's
more
like,
important things.
Chicago, it needs me.
Chicago, I'm the best thing for Chicago outside of Murph. It's like, no, you're fine. So, yeah, that is the end of the 5th book.
Yeah. Well, the book ends in such a beautiful movie-esque way where he's reflecting on the past and he's looking at Susan's picture and he takes it down and says that some things just aren't meant to go together. The same way that he said that at the beginning, that some things just aren't meant to go together, like orange juice and toothpaste and him and Susan. And
Him and Susan, it just doesn't make sense anymore.
yikes. There were so many like weird things happening in this end section here where it was just like, did Jim Butcher read a Lemony Snicket book and think, you know what, this chaos works,
Yes.
and and try to replicate it because there was trains, there's helicopters, there's eye tattoos on ankles, there's all sorts of things that are happening in Lemony Snicket books, and I was like, but this didn't work for adult audiences because it was a little bit harder to keep up with and a little confusing.
I don't know. This is so
I also
wild.
just like there was a lot of really tropey things in this book, especially towards the end here, where it's like the we can't be together. And then of course Marconi's daughter is sick and she's in a coma. And of course Shiro had cancer and had to sacrifice himself. Like so many of these things were very tropey to me and I was just like, ugh.
Can I tell you who I do? I couldn't give a shit less about Marconi. Knowing that
Oh
he
my
has a
gosh.
sick daughter does
It's
not
like,
make me care about him
well, and
more.
it's like,
I'm
is this
so
an attempt
sorry.
to humanize him that we're supposed to be like, you know
I
who I
don't
care about now? This gangster.
I don't care about him. He's not that interesting. He's
And
not.
again, like, I don't understand if this is like one of the most powerful, like, crime lords in Chicago. Why is he not outsourcing some of these things? Why is he the one in the
Literally,
helicopter? Why is he the one that's doing all this stuff?
demons understand middle management more than he
Yes,
does. And they're like, I'm not going to go find a shroud. You do that, Harry. I'll
it
pay
just
you.
doesn't
It's
make
cheaper.
sense.
I don't understand. It makes me so mad. I'm just like, why does he keep popping up? Why is Harry like, I'm constant? And I get it. Like, I think back in this time period for these types of books, it was really important. And I'm sure we can talk about this in characters and themes. It used to be
Mhm.
really important to have like a human character be one of the main foils so that you could be like, hey, yes, we have all this magic system, but like, really, the danger is real world humans. And I'm like, I think it's the damn demon who's been around since Jesus's time who
Right. Like,
can't
obviously,
die.
it's Nicodemus is the real issue here.
He's the big bad. Like, I don't care about Marconi and his machine
Mm-mm.
guns. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know why they keep
Yeah,
trying to.
I don't know why well, and it's very much like almost like Marvel-esque in my mind where we're trying to bring in these people where it's like, oh, who's the guy I'm thinking of? Vincent D'Onofrio from
Yeah.
Echo.
Oh my God.
What's
A
his character
kingpin.
in Marvel?
Kingpin.
Kingpin, thank you. They're trying to make like a Kingpin character here with him is what I'm assuming is happening. And
Yeah.
it's just like even in Marvel, Kingpin like in Echo at least, like I feel like he is not as serious as like let's say Thanos.
Thanos.
Like that we're not even comparing them. Like they're not the same level. Oh,
I don't know. I don't. It's a wild time to read these books and be like, Marconi's still a thing? How has he not died yet? And he's just whipping it. Like, how is Harry like, you
I
know who I have on speed
I
dial?
just don't get why we're supposed to
Marconi.
take him seriously when there's all of these like really magical people and abilities that are happening. Like, why are we supposed to take him so seriously? But
Don't
then I guess at
know.
the same time, we're supposed to take Karen Murphy very seriously. So
She's the
I
best thing
don't.
that ever happens to Chicago. How dare you get her name out of your mouth?
But it's just like, I guess it's similar, where it's like if we're supposed to take her very seriously and she doesn't have any of these powers, I guess. But it's almost like a different level to me because it's like he is like supposed to be cartoonishly evil and we're
Evil,
supposed to like be like,
but
yeah,
also
and he's as
not
bad
evil
as
at all.
Nicodemus.
Like,
And it's like, but he's constantly helping Harry and stuff. So, okay.
he's not that evil. Like, he's fine. I think the biggest thing he's committed is like tax evasion and hiring guys who have machine guns. That's
Yeah.
about it. It's a weird time.
Really, really confusing.
I don't
Yeah.
know. All right. Well, guys, if you're interested in having us talk more about Marconi, join
Which
us
you
next
are.
week as we dive into the characters and themes of Death Masks by Jim Butcher, a library book that I can now return now that we've done.
Why was it called Death Masks? Did we ever work in the title of the book?
Um, maybe it's having Father
The
Vincent's
Shroud?
face on that one
Oh,
guy. Like it's a
maybe.
mask of death.
Okay. Because I was trying to, I'm like trying to figure out like why some of these are named what they are. And I'm like, I don't know if I understand why it was named Death Masks. Listeners, shout me out.
At
What,
us.
what is, why is it called Death Masks?
Yeah, I don't know. Shroud of Turin
Jim
is
Butcher,
was too
let us
long.
know.
Well, if you guys are enjoying us, please join us next week as we do the themes and characters of Death Math, as we said, as we figure out why it's named that.
Mhm.
Or please rate, review, and subscribe, or both. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is a great way to bring more people to our channel, which we are always hoping to do.
And
You
you
can
can do that over
also
on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Yes, you can. You can do it on Podcast Addict, which is the one I use.
Yeah.
You can do it anywhere you find podcasts. You can also follow us on all social media platforms at OWWR Pod or see what's up next for us at ourpod.com. We have some great stuff coming up over there, including our indie mission lineup release, which is coming out
Yay.
soon. We're doing things a little bit differently this year because, like I said, I'm getting married in 6 weeks. So make sure you are keeping an eye out for that. And if you so choose, please join us over on the Patreon. We have $1, $3, $5, and $10 tiers. And any little bit of support is always helpful. We
Yeah,
always
we really
appreciate it.
appreciate it.
It does help, pay for some of the magical things you get, including the bookmarks that are up on
Yay.
Patreon that I often use Canva to help design, and I do have to pay for that. So you're always supporting us in many different ways. All right, everyone. Can't wait to
And
talk
join us on
more.
Discord.
Oh, join. Yes, please do. We love it over there. People were talking this week about a book I was reading and about Kevin can F himself. So please make
Yes.
sure you're following us over there. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. Can't wait to talk again next week. Bye.
Bye.